Yes.
Dissatisfied?
Dissatisfied. Okay, that could into it. Good. Dissatisfied. Where do you feel dissatisfied? Like where in the body do you feel dissatisfied? Pay attention to this, everybody, because we're getting close to that time, and I can imagine you're feeling a little restless. Anybody, just out of curiosity, anybody feeling a little restless? Hasn't sat for an hour and 15 minutes with just a little bit of a stand-up? Raise your hand if you're feeling a little restless. Yeah, okay. Now, part of what we read about the science is also conflict monitoring. Conflict monitoring is part of the brain called conflict monitoring. That's monitoring a conflict. I don't want to pay attention, or I want to think about what I'm doing, or I'm just sort of like not, and deciding how you're going to actually marshal your attention. You're in charge of your attention. Believe me, just because your attention is moving in a direction that feels restless, meaning your attention isn't here, but it's sort of here, and it's 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 here, with thoughts saying, whatever that might be, doesn't mean you can't bring it back. You can't say, right? But you got to sort of pull it out. So here we are going a little more granular. Where is dissatisfied in the body? I can assure you, we have thoughts, feelings, and sensations, and we can put thoughts to dissatisfied. What's a thought that would be accompanying dissatisfied? Bless you. What's a thought that you might have while you're in the midst of a conversation with somebody? Yeah.
This is boring.
This is boring. Great. So there's a thought. This is boring. Very good. There's the thought. Now we have a feeling, which we can call dissatisfied, right? Okay. And now I'm saying, and what is the sensation in the body? Yeah.
For me, it's like here.
Yeah, good. Like here. That's really good. Like here. Like here. It's going to always be. That's always the answer, by the way. It's always going to be like here. And here, in this case, you're pointing to your neck, right? Okay. Now, can you say it a little bit more? Like, what is it that's happening like here?
It's like a jumping sensation?
Yeah, isn't this interesting? It's like a jumping sensation. Now, if you're talking to somebody, and it's boring or whatever, and you're having a thought like, this is boring, and you're feeling dissatisfied whether you know it or not, and in here it's like jumping, like, right? Is it any surprise you'll be like, okay, thanks a lot, see you later. Right? Why wouldn't you? And the jumping is so powerfully rich because it literally is like wanting to be somewhere else. The body is wanting to be somewhere else. All these things are orchestrating an escape, right? Maybe that's useful. Maybe that's not. If you had a little kid next to you, let's just say, not to overly make this sort of analytical, but just for the sake of imagery, if you have a little kid while you're having that conversation, and one kid's saying, it's a little Kyle over here, saying, this is boring, this is boring. And then you got this one kind of grabbing your neck, like, let's get out of here, let's get out of here. Right? You'd be like, what are you guys doing? I'm in the middle of a conversation. Oh, God. What? And you would say, it'll be okay. It's just a conversation. Just wait a minute. Right? But if we're not aware and skillful, right? Because it could be just like, stop, stop, stop. That's not so useful. It's like, it's okay, I understand. It's a little boring, I know. Here, pay a little closer attention. Right? Then it can change. And this is just a micro moment of a lifetime. So, very nice. This week we will be paying especially close attention at a more granular level to the data that oftentimes is contributing significantly to our decision making, whether we're aware of it or not. And this is the most important thing. How does it feel like here when we are feeling restless? How does that feel? Is that pleasant or unpleasant? Unpleasant. Anybody here practice this week? When we come back from our break, we'll talk a little bit about this week's practice. Anybody practice this week and find it hard to do? Would you say that that was the moments that were pleasant or unpleasant? Unpleasant. And did you find anybody that as a result it sort of affected your doing it or how long you did it? Tends to. So part of the mindfulness practice is to be aware and then to be skillful in the midst of the challenging moment. So when you're sitting for 3 or 5 or 7 or 10 or 12 or 15 minutes, and there's a little, this is boring. What about that assignment? You have to get that assignment done. You're not going to get it done if you do this. Right? Or just this unsettled angst. What we're learning to do is, and I say this very carefully, it's not about, that is to say, mindfulness ultimately, and mindfulness practices ultimately, are not about feeling better. They're about being aware of what we're feeling. And if you really want to be aware of what you're feeling, you've got to stay with it longer than you might be inclined if you're left to the devices of your own historic conditioning, which might say, this doesn't feel good, so I'm out of here. And here and this is important, because you might find yourself in a conversation one day with somebody in a relationship, and it's so painful, and you're feeling such anger or such sadness, and you're like, I got to stay here for it. No, you got to be good to yourself. Sometimes it's like, you know what, let's have this conversation later. I'm not feeling up to this conversation. I'm getting a little overwhelmed. I'm getting a little angry. I'm getting a little scared. Whatever that might be. I need to take. So you got to be aware, and you have to be able to communicate. That's the skillful way of working with it. So it's not like you grin and bear every uncomfortable moment. To the contrary. But there is that edge of our comfort, and we're sort of interested in sort of hanging out there a little bit longer than we might otherwise. And here we're talking not about creating or jumping into a painful situation, other than one that's inherently, seemingly, as basic as it gets. You're just sitting by yourself, paying attention to your mind, or to something that's taking place around you.